I'm joined by Nia Malika Henderson, national reporter for the Washington Post, and Chip Saltzman, a Republican strategist who was Mike Huckabee's campaign manager in 2008. First, thanks to both of you. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Good to be with you.
Good to be here.
Let me start with you, Nia. Is it time for a new set of GOP talking points on the economy?
In some ways, it probably is. I think there is a sense that there needs to be sort of an expansion in terms of what they're arguing about, what they're arguing for, how they're positioning their candidacies to make a reasonable argument that they should replace the president. I think this idea that, that the economy would have been better had the president not taken certain steps is a hard argument to make. You see that Mitt Romney is trying to make a similar argument around GM. He says that he could have done a better job if there wasn't this infusion of $80 billion cash. But so far, it looks like GM is doing quite well, having had just record profits over the last 103 years, something like $9.6 billion, which is a record for that company. So it's a very hard argument that they're trying to make. You have seen some movement, for instance, by Santorum to expand this fight along social issues. But even with that, you've seen him get in some trouble. We'll see Mitt Romney give a pretty big speech this week, Thursday, in Michigan, and so I think we'll have to see what he does in terms of broadening his case for his candidacy.
Now, Chip, if you were advising any of the candidates that are running, you ran Huckabee's 2008 campaign, what would you be telling them to say in terms of the economy? Would you be tweaking what they're saying now, or would you take a whole new strategy?
Well, first of all, in 2008 we lost, so they probably won't be listening to my strategy. But anyway, I think you have to say first, this is good news. And that's okay to say it's good news. Look, a better economy is not just good for Barack Obama, it's good for the whole country.
Right.
I think what you can do, though, is take the next level and say, what can we be doing better? Talking to the manufacturing plants, what can we do to make sure you'll hire more people? That's less regulation. And that's when you talk about EPA and OSHA, that I think Barack Obama and this administration has let them get out of control. It's lower taxes. We have one of the most highest effective tax rates for businesses. Lower those tax rates, less regulations, and then let's really get this economy booming. And last but not least is focus on another thing that could be a big roadblock to this recovery is energy prices. With what Iran's done today with Great Britain and other European countries has cut off the oil, we could see $5 gas, and these energy prices could slow down this growth. So I think if I was advising a Republican candidate, I would say talk about those things that we can make the economy grow faster, better, but celebrate the good news, because this is good for all Americans, Democrats, Republicans, and even independents.
I agree with you about celebrating the good news. I almost totally disagree with everything else you said, but it makes more sense than anything that they're saying. And so much so that, Nia, we are now hearing people openly talk about maybe Romney can't do it, maybe Santorum is too far right. We're starting to hear open discussion about a brokered convention. Let me show you a few headlines. Politico says, worry over Romney sparks talk of Tampa. National Review quotes a South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint saying a contested convention is possible. Jim DeMint of South Carolina saying that. And an anonymous Republican senator told ABC News, quote, if Romney loses Michigan, we need a new candidate. What's all of this indicating, Nia?
Well, it's indicating that Romney, to a lot of Republicans, is still a fragile frontrunner. He looked like he gained some momentum coming out of Florida, and then he wrapped up Nevada, but then he ran into Santorum's 3-state streak. And, of course, now he's running into problems in Michigan. I think even if he wins Michigan, it's probably going to be a close race no matter what. I was campaigning with Santorum last week in Idaho, and he was saying that he expects to come in a second, which would actually be pretty good for his candidacy. It's a proportional balloting. But I think this talk of a brokered convention really just reflects this general sense that Romney just hasn't been able to close the deal among conservatives, and he's seeming like a weak candidate. He's not very good on the stump when it comes to the sort of kind of feel your pain aspect that a lot of presidential candidates have to master. And he's not necessarily good at giving speeches. He makes a lot of gaffes. So I think people are very concerned. I think the likelihood still of a brokered convention is not very likely. It hasn't happened in the last 50 years in terms of the Republican Party. And I think we're in an era in terms of politics where there are not a lot of party bigwigs. Who are the party leaders that would actually broker this convention? And what would Santorum actually ask for? And is there a space, if Romney actually comes up with these delegates, does Santorum go in there and say, I want a vice presidential slot? It's hard to imagine that, given that he himself has said that for Romney would, in fact, be a hollow victory.
Now, Chip, let me show you some polls and then show you some reactions. If you look at the polls, 44% are not satisfied, one poll has, with the current field. This is Republican voters. USA Today Gallup poll says 29% want a new nominee from a brokered convention. Then on the Sunday shows, there was open discussion across the board in Sunday shows with some leading Republicans discussing whether a late entry from some unknown candidate could work. Let me show you what some of them were saying on the Sunday shows.
Sure.
I have a hard time seeing how somebody could get in at this late date.
I think it's about as remote as life on Pluto. It could happen, sure. You can make up all kinds of scenarios.
I do think that on the Republican side there may be more demand than there is supply in terms of the candidates, but that's the nature of the process.
So the polls are saying that the party membership or party voters either want someone else or confused. The guys that have been in key positions in the party are kind of poo-pooing it. Where's the disconnect? Are the polls wrong?
Well, no, I think the leadership's saying exactly right. A brokered convention, possible, not probable. I think the polls reflect something that we all know, that this is a very tough primary season right now for Republicans. We're really fighting it out in the trenches, and that's not pretty. And if you're not in those trenches and you're kind of looking from the outside looking in, it's not very attractive. And even some of the folks in the trenches are looking out saying maybe this is not the best way. But look, we've been through some tough primaries. You've been through some tough primaries, and you tend to work themselves out, and then a month or two after the primary, we look back and go, what was all the fuss about? It wasn't that bad. I think Governor Romney, if he's going to be the nominee, has got to win Michigan. He's got to set himself as the standard bearer for reasons. Santorum's the same way. He's had a bad couple of days in the press. He's going to have to say, look, I'm passionate about these issues. This is what I believe in. This is why I should be the nomination. It's not going to get any prettier over the next couple of weeks. But once I think it's all said and done, Republicans will come together just like we always do and put together a strong nominee to beat Barack Obama in November, not unlike the primary you went through in 2004. That was a pretty rock'em sock'em tough primary where there was a lot of people in the Democrat Party that were not happy with any of the candidates except maybe for you. And then they eventually got behind their nominee, John Kerry, although he won enough votes you would think to win, but it was a close election.
Yeah, but Chip, it was a different kind of fight, but I'll have to let it go there. And you're right, anytime you're in a storm, you can always say the storm will pass. Problem is, if you get wet, you may catch a cold, and it takes longer than that to get over a cold. It might be past November. Nia, Malika, Chip, thank you both for joining me today.